Life for me away from the track nowadays is obviously way different than what it was, what I grew up to, what I'm used to. Obviously, I used to surf a lot when I was a kid, so there's not a beach within an hour's drive of here, which was the hardest thing to really for me to get used to when we first got here. Was just the fact that I grew up on the water, and Amy did too as a wakeboarder, and we out here in the desert were like, there's something about the ocean that is calming. So once we kind of got over that, it's we somewhat have just been so busy. We've been out here, and there hasn't really been substantial periods of downtime where I've had to like find things to do to occupy myself. When I have been home, it's all about always trying to climb, trying to get myself in a situation where I felt somewhat comfortable. So getting the this course built here in my front yard was the biggest challenge. Obviously I needed somewhere where I could practice on my own terms, because I come to the US and every rider knows what it's like when you're asking someone else to ride at their facility. It's obviously when it fits them, and when it's, and you don't want to step on anyone's toes, you don't want to upset anyone, but you also want to use it as much as you possibly can. So it's kind of something that's hard to balance, because you always become annoying no matter how cool and friendly you are. And even if you're kicking down money, sometimes it always gets to the point where they don't want your cash, they just don't want you, just leave me alone, I want to ride my own place. So I figured that I definitely was in tune with that. So when we got out here, I kind of bounced around and rode different dude spots, but essentially all I wanted was my own place to ride at, and that's why I spent the money I have to get this facility. And it's pretty much taken me my entire career to get the dream, to realize it. But at the end of the day, it's definitely a cool thing to have in my yard. It's gonna make life easier for me just with experimenting, stuff like that. I definitely have some goals of like pushing the limits in next games and whatnot, but also helping the younger kids come through. So, but life beyond riding, it hasn't really been so much of it. I think now I'm kind of getting into that period now where it's things are starting to slow down. But in the last 6 years, to be honest, I haven't really missed. There hasn't really been any weeks where it's been total downtime. It's not like I'm a racer and I get an off season. It's freestyle motocross riders. When it's winter, we ride indoors. When it's summer, we travel the entire world, and it's always summer somewhere. So for me, it's been on the road 24/7 for 6 years. Amy's role, she plays a huge role. I think if you sat down, you could pretty much easily say she does nothing. But at the end of the day, she does everything. To be honest, it's keeping me sane and keeping like the balance with the family side of things is what she's great at. And obviously throughout your career, every single day you're faced to make a decision, and having someone that's just the connection that we have is like, I think 50% of the time I'm right, and I think about things in a totally different way that she does. But her way of thinking, 50% of the time she's right, and somehow we've been able to discuss everything and work out when she is right and go with her choice, and work out when I'm right and go with my choice. So through that, we've been able to kind of navigate our way through all kinds of different situations, and somehow make wise enough decisions where we've been able to kind of find some success and make right decisions and house ourselves around some good people. So Amy's role has been key for everything I've done. She kind of highlighted where I was going wrong when we first met, and realised that I was, to be honest, I was a crazy dude and I was making a lot of stupid decisions. But once she came on board, I was able to really just navigate things in a different way. And early on in our relationship, I said that where it's at is to go to America, and her brother Josh Sanders was a world champion wakeboarder, and he had a lot of ties out here. So I first came into the scene by doing demos at wakeboard events, and that was through her relationship, we got to the US and started getting some exposure and getting to events, and from there on, we've kind of pulled things off. But she's also the mum, now she's a mum to Cruz, and she's been she's been the mum to me pretty much too. She's takes care of me and helps cook, and with all the travel plans and stuff like that, she's definitely helps out a lot there. So to be honest, Ames plays a huge role. And now that we have Cruz, life is it's a little bit more complicated for sure, but we've been able to manage having her parents come out and my parents come out and ease the strain. And her family actually spent almost 12 months here, which enabled me to still travel and ride and and somehow we're able to kind of still get some success. Having a baby boy though is definitely a baby. Either matter if it's a boy or girl. I think it's definitely something that it takes a lot, a lot out of you, and at some capacity you're unable to give your sport what you used to be able to give it, but in some situations you're able to give it more, just because your dedication to what's important in your life changes. So now that I'm dedicated to my son and providing from him, I think I give my riding and my fitness and stuff a whole new level of dedication and clarity. But at the same time, it takes a lot of time away from you. So the time that it takes away from you, I like to think, is the time that I used to maybe spend with friends, and then the time that I get to train is essentially a little bit more time, because now you're not out wasting time with friends. You're like, when it is time to train or ride, you're able to sneak it in, but in between nappy changes and in between afternoon naps, and still get the job done.